Right, figured it out. It's really simple. I'm proper annoyed I couldn't figure it out earlier. Here's what you do. We've got our original solution here with our skeleton warrior, which contains the collider which is there, and the child collider which is the cube at the bottom of the chain. So that cube is currently invisible. The only thing I was missing, and what I'd completely forgotten, is that colliders don't trigger their own on trigger enter events. That's not what it does. What does trigger on collision or on trigger events is a rigid body component, and that's what I was missing. Now, a rigid body component is usually used to apply physics to something, but we don't want physics on this object, but we need a rigid body component in order to apply the collision detection. So what do? You apply the rigid body component, as you can see I've done here at that level, so all I had to do was apply a rigid body. And then to make this work, we don't want gravity, but we do want it to be kinematic. Kinematic means responds to interactions, but doesn't force them, doesn't become a physics object in some way. And what you'll then be able to hopefully see, our enemy health script with our HP of 100. And if you'll notice, if I go back to my sword, I'm going to remove our little script we were doing called do damage. It's not the sword that is doing damage now, it's all managed by the skeleton's health script, the enemy health script here. With that rigid body on there, it will then be detecting collisions. Sword grabbed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, down and 10, there you go, and away it goes. The reason why it went before 10 hits is I was catching the head and the chest, or the head and the box with a single swing. That may not be the behaviour that you want. If you've got lots of colliders, what that means is doing a big slash will infer many hits, and maybe that's not a behaviour that you want. So I'm just going to show you one more quick technique you may find useful when you're developing your projects. So currently, let's screw that off, the enemy health script is just saying when I'm hit by a sword, do some damage. But what we can actually now do is impart a little bit of a cooldown on how often we can take damage. So even if you like just wiggle the sword and do loads of damage just by making lots of collisions, we're going to add a cooldown. So you've got to have some sort of delay between your strikes. So we need some kind of count. Public float start time, which starts life at 0. Public float reset time. Think of this like how long you're invulnerable for. Let's say you're invulnerable for a second, and there we go. What we also then need to say is every frame on update. So private void update every frame start time plus equals time dot delta time. Remember that means go up 1 second per second. And then all we're going to say is our on trigger enter. When we hit something with the sword and the start time is greater than or equal to the reset time, basically is the start time larger than 1 second, has at least 1 second passed since we were hit with the sword previously, and if that is true, then do you know what? As well as taking 10 points of HP away and checking if we destroyed the character, what we are also going to do is reset the start time back to 0. So if I spend 1,000 seconds and not hit my enemy for 1,000 seconds, reset time will be 1,000. Is 1,000 greater than 1? Yes, it is. Do some damage to them and then reset it back to 0. So they will be invulnerable for that for a second after the strike. Let me check that is true, and never trust me, because who knows. I just still think that's very funny, that capsule on the head. I might actually. Lego man. Right. Now it should take at least 10 hits that are separated by at least 1 second. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and obviously that's not got a 1 second delay. I'm now adding some delays between it. There we go. So you can see by adding that delay has worked, and it should just report that I had 59 hits. Okay, that makes sense. So the reason why it was saying I had 59 hits is we're always going to display that there was a hit, but it only does some damage if it wasn't invulnerable during that time. So you've got some options is basically what I'm saying. So apologies for that slightly convoluted process, but we got there in the end. Okay, good luck, take care.